So, yeah, this whole nightmare started the day we moved into that house. At first, it looked like a totally normal place. You know the type. Quiet neighborhood. Big trees. Old houses lined up on both sides of the street. The kind of place where nothing crazy ever happens. Or at least, that's what we thought. My name's Jake. About 2 years ago, my family decided to leave the city and move into this small town out in the middle of nowhere. My mom kept saying it would be a fresh start. New school, new house, new life. But the moment we pulled up in front of that house, something already felt off. The house looked old. Not abandoned or broken or anything like that. Just old. 2 floors, dark wooden porch, and this giant oak tree right in the front yard that kept creaking in the wind, like someone slowly rocking back and forth. Emma, my little sister, jumped out of the car first. "Shotgun on the big room," she yelled while running to the front door. Typical Emma. Dad laughed and started unloading boxes. Mom looked excited. But me? I just stood there staring at the house. Something about it made my stomach feel weird, like the place didn't want us there. Eventually, Dad tossed me a box. Stop daydreaming and help. So I grabbed the box and walked inside. The moment I stepped through the front door, I felt it, that weird feeling again, like the air inside the house was colder than outside. The hallway stretched straight ahead, and at the very end of it, there was a door, a plain wooden door, slightly open, pitch black inside. I don't know why, but I couldn't stop staring at it. It felt like something inside that room was staring back. "Jake!" Mom's voice snapped me out of it. "Kitchen boxes go here." "Yeah, coming." I walked past the hallway quickly, but right when I did, I heard something, a soft dragging sound, like something slowly moving across the floor. I turned around instantly. The door was still open, the room still dark, and completely silent. I shook my head. Just the house settling. I told myself, old houses make weird sounds, right? Yeah, that's what I thought too, until the first night. Moving all day completely drained us. Boxes everywhere. Half the furniture wasn't even set up yet. We ordered pizza and called it a night. By midnight, everyone went to sleep. My room was upstairs, right above the living room. The bed squeaked every time I moved, but I was too tired to care. I passed out almost instantly. At least, I think I did, because at exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke up. At first, I didn't know why. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Downstairs. Slow footsteps. Step, step, step. At first, I figured it was Dad grabbing water or something. But then something hit me. Dad walks heavy. These footsteps weren't heavy. They were light, careful, like someone was trying not to be heard. Step, 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 walking through the hallway. My heart started beating faster. I grabbed my phone. 3:12 a.m. The footsteps suddenly stopped, right below my room. Then I heard something else. A whisper. So quiet I almost missed it. "Hello?" My whole body froze. That wasn't Dad. That wasn't Mom. It sounded like a little kid. "Hello?" The whisper came again. But this time, it sounded like it was right outside my bedroom door. My heart was pounding like crazy now. I stared at the door. The hallway light was off, so the crack under the door was completely dark. Then suddenly, a shadow moved. Something passed in front of the door, like someone standing there, just waiting. I forced my voice out. "Emma?" No answer. "Emma, quit messing around." Silence. Then the whisper came again, right outside the door. "Jake." My blood ran cold. Emma never calls me Jake. She calls me Jay. Always. Slowly, the doorknob started turning. Click, click, click. I jumped out of bed. "Hey!" The knob instantly stopped. Total silence. I slowly walked toward the door. Every step felt heavier than the last. My hand grabbed the knob, and I yanked the door open. The hallway was empty, completely empty. No one there, just darkness, and the stairs leading downstairs. I walked to Emma's room, opened her door. She was asleep, snoring loudly. Then I checked Mom and Dad's room, both asleep. which meant whatever was outside my door wasn't them. The next morning, I told everyone. Mom laughed. Probably just a dream. Dad said old houses make noises. Emma said I was being paranoid. Maybe they were right. Maybe I imagined it. But the second night proved something. Because that night, the footsteps came back. But this time, they weren't alone. And whatever was walking in our house was slowly coming upstairs by the third night. I already knew something in that house wasn't normal. The footsteps at 3 a.m., the whisper outside my bedroom door, and that strange hallway that always felt wrong. But what happened that night made me realize the house was hiding something far worse. It was around 2:50 a.m. when I suddenly woke up. At first, everything was quiet. Then I heard something downstairs, a slow scratching sound, like someone dragging their fingers across the floor. I sat up in bed, trying to listen carefully. The sound continued. S-C-R-R, S-C-R-R, moving through the hallway. My heart started pounding. Then suddenly it stopped. Complete silence. A few seconds later, my dad opened his bedroom door. "You hear that?" he whispered. "Yeah," I said. We both went downstairs to check. The house felt colder than usual, almost like someone had left a window open. When we reached the living room, my dad froze. The front door. I looked over. The front door was open, but the weird thing was the security chain was still locked, like the door had opened by itself. Dad slowly closed it again. "That's not normal," he said. Right then, we heard something else. A quiet voice, coming from the basement. It sounded like a kid whispering. "Hello?" Dad looked at me. "Emma down there?" "No way." He grabbed a flashlight and slowly opened the basement door. The stairs were completely dark. The smell coming from below was awful, like something had been rotting for years. We walked down the steps slowly. Each step creaked loudly. At the bottom of the basement, there was a small crawl space door in the wall, and it was slightly open. The whisper came again. "Please help." My dad slowly walked toward it. He pulled the door open. The flashlight beam went inside, and suddenly he stepped back. Bones. Small bones. Dozens of them. And in the center, a tiny child skeleton. My stomach turned. "Dad, what is that?" Before he could answer, the basement lights suddenly turned on by themselves. We both turned toward the stairs. A little boy was standing there, maybe 7 or 8 years old. His skin was pale. His clothes looked old and torn, and his eyes were completely black. He was smiling, but the smile didn't feel human. Then he spoke. "You found them." The lights started flickering, and suddenly the basement filled with whispers, different children's voices, all speaking at once. "Stay with us. Don't leave. Stay here forever." The boy slowly started walking down the stairs toward us, his head tilted to one side. You weren't supposed to see. My dad grabbed my arm. "Run." We ran up the stairs as fast as we could. Behind us, we heard footsteps running too. But they weren't normal footsteps. They sounded like something crawling. We reached the hallway and ran outside. The moment we stepped onto the lawn, every light in the house turned on, then off, then on again. Suddenly, every window in the house shattered at once. The whispering stopped instantly. Everything became silent. Police arrived later that night. When they searched the basement crawl space, they found 5 missing children's skeletons from cases that had been unsolved for decades. No one could explain how they got there. 2 weeks later, the house was demolished. The land stayed empty for years. Eventually, someone built a new house there. A new family moved in. Everything looked normal again. But last week, I drove past that street, and when I looked toward the new house, I saw something that made my blood freeze. In the upstairs window, a little boy was standing there, watching the street, watching the house, and slowly, he lifted one finger to his lips. It all started the day we moved into that new house. At first, everything seemed pretty normal. New neighborhood, quiet street, nice lawns, the whole suburban vibe. The kind of place where nothing ever happens. But that's exactly what made it feel wrong. My name's Jake, and about 2 years ago my family moved from Chicago to this small town in the middle of nowhere. My mom said it would be a fresh start. Yeah, turns out it was more like a fresh nightmare. The house itself looked amazing from the outside. 2 stories, dark wooden porch, tall windows, old oak tree in the front yard that creaked whenever the wind hit it. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt something weird. You ever walk into a place and instantly feel like you're not supposed to be there? Like the house itself is watching you? Yeah, that feeling. My little sister Emma ran inside first. "Dibs on the big room," she yelled. Mom laughed. Dad started dragging boxes, and like everything was normal. But I kept standing in the doorway, staring down the hallway. Something about that hallway made my stomach twist. It was long, too long, and at the very end of it, there was a door. Just a plain wooden door, but it was slightly open, and inside was completely dark. I don't know why, but I couldn't stop staring at it. "Jake!" Mom shouted from the kitchen. "Stop daydreaming and help." I snapped out of it. "Yeah, coming." I grabbed a box and walked past the hallway, and for a split second, I swear, I heard something move inside that dark room, like a slow, dragging sound. I froze. I looked back at the door. It hadn't moved. The room was still pitch black. I told myself it was nothing, just the house settling. Old houses make weird noises all the time, right? That's what I thought, until the first night. We were all exhausted from moving. Boxes everywhere. Furniture half assembled. Pizza boxes on the counter. Pretty typical move-in night. Around midnight, everyone went to sleep. My room was upstairs, right above the living room. The bed creaked every time I moved, which was annoying as hell. But eventually I passed out. Or at least, I think I did. Because around 3:12 a.m., I woke up, and the first thing I noticed was the sound. Footsteps. Slow footsteps. Coming from downstairs. At first, I thought it was Dad grabbing water or something. But then I realized something. Dad's footsteps were heavy. These weren't. These were slow, light, almost like someone was trying not to be heard. Step, 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 moving through the hallway. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my phone. 3:12 a.m. The footsteps stopped, right under my room. Then I heard something else. A whisper. So quiet I almost missed it. "Hello?" I froze. That wasn't Dad. That wasn't Mom. It sounded like a kid. A little kid. I slowly sat up in bed. My throat went dry. "Hello?" The voice whispered again. And this time, it sounded like it was right outside my bedroom door. My heart started racing. I stared at the door. The hallway light was off, so the gap under the door was pitch black. Then I saw it. A shadow. Something moved past the bottom of the door, like someone standing there, just waiting. I forced myself to speak. "Emma?" No answer. "Emma, quit messing around." Silence. Then the whisper came again, right outside the door. "Jake." My blood turned cold. Emma never calls me Jake. She calls me Jay. Always. And then the doorknob slowly started turning. Click, click, click. I jumped out of bed. "Hey!" The knob stopped. Silence again. I walked toward the door slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last. My hand reached the knob, and I yanked the door open. The hallway was empty. Completely empty. No Emma. No parents. Nothing. Just darkness. And the hallway leading down the stairs. I walked to Emma's room. Opened the door. She was fast asleep. Snoring. I checked Mom and Dad's room. Same thing. Both asleep, which meant whatever was outside my door wasn't them. The next morning I told Mom. She laughed it off. Probably a dream. Dad said the house just makes noises. Emma said I was being paranoid. Yeah, that's what I thought too, until the second night. Because that night, the footsteps came back. But this time, they weren't alone. Around 2:45 a.m., I suddenly woke up because of a loud noise coming from downstairs. It sounded like something heavy had fallen. My dad woke up too, so we both went downstairs to check. When we reached the living room, we both froze. The front door was open, but the strange thing was the door chain was still locked, like no one could have opened it from outside. Then we heard something else. From the basement, we heard the sound of a child crying. My dad grabbed a flashlight and slowly walked toward the basement door. The basement was dark and the air smelled strange. In the corner of the basement, there was a small wooden crawlspace door, slightly open. When my dad opened it, we saw small bones scattered inside, and in the middle of them, there was a child skeleton. Suddenly, the basement lights turned on by themselves. We both turned toward the stairs. A little boy was standing there. His skin was pale, and his eyes were completely black. He slowly smiled and said, "You weren't supposed to find me." The lights started flickering, and whispers of different children filled the basement. My dad grabbed my arm and shouted, "Run!" We all ran out of the house. As soon as we stepped outside, every light in the house started turning on and off, and suddenly all the windows shattered at once. Later, the police searched the basement. Inside the crawl space, they found 6 children's skeletons, all of them kids who had been missing for years. 2 weeks later, the house was demolished, but the story didn't end there. A few months later, a new house was built on the same land, and a new family moved in. One night, I drove past that place again. Everything looked normal, but when I looked at the front window, I saw that same little boy standing there, smiling. When we moved into our new house, everything felt perfect. Quiet neighborhood, friendly neighbors, big backyard. It was the kind of place where nothing bad ever seemed to happen. At least, that's what we thought. My name is Ryan, and this happened about a year ago. The house we moved into wasn't brand new, but it looked nice enough. 2 floors, white walls, a wooden porch, and a long street with only a few houses. But there was one thing that always bothered me. The house across the street. It looked different from the others. The paint was faded. The windows were always closed, and no one ever seemed to come or go. The strange part was every night, one light turned on inside that house. Just one, the upstairs bedroom light, and it always turned on around 3 a.m. The first few nights, I didn't really care. I figured someone lived there and just had weird sleep habits. But one night, something strange happened. I was in my room playing games on my laptop. When I looked outside the window, the light in the house across the street had just turned on, 3:01 a.m. I looked at the window of that room, and that's when I saw it. A shadow. Someone standing inside the room, watching the street. At first, I thought it was just a person who lived there, but then I realized something strange. The shadow wasn't moving at all. It just stood there, perfectly still, watching. After a few minutes, I shrugged it off and went to sleep. But the next night, it happened again. 3 a.m. The same light turned on, and the same shadow appeared in the window, standing in the exact same spot, completely still. That's when it started to feel creepy. For the next week, I kept checking every night. And every night, it was the same thing. 3 a.m., light on, shadow in the window, not moving, just standing there, watching the street. Finally, I asked my dad about it. "Hey, who lives in the house across the street?" He looked confused. "What house?" "The gray one." Dad looked out the window. Then he frowned. "That house is empty." I laughed. "No, it's not. Someone turns a light on every night." Dad shook his head. "That place has been abandoned for years." My stomach dropped. "Then who's in the window?" Dad didn't answer. The next day, curiosity got the better of me. So after school, I walked across the street. The house looked even worse up close. The grass was overgrown. The mailbox was rusted, and the windows were dusty. But the front door was slightly open. I hesitated for a moment, then pushed it open. The inside smelled like old wood and dust. Sunlight barely came through the dirty windows. Every step I took made the floor creak loudly. The whole house felt wrong, like it hadn't been touched in years. But the strangest thing was the stairs. They led directly to the room where the light turned on every night. I slowly walked upstairs. My heart was beating faster with every step. When I reached the hallway, the door to that room was slightly open, just like my bedroom door that night weeks ago. I pushed it open slowly. The room was empty. No furniture. No bed. Nothing. Just an old, dusty floor. I looked around confused. Then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. In the center of the floor, there were footprints in the dust. Fresh footprints, leading directly to the window. I followed them with my eyes. They stopped right in front of the glass, exactly where the shadow always stood. My heart started racing. Then suddenly, I heard something behind me, a slow creak, like someone stepping on the floor. I turned around quickly. The hallway was empty, but the front door downstairs suddenly slammed shut. Bang! My heart almost jumped out of my chest. Then I heard footsteps, slow footsteps, coming up the stairs. Step, step, step. Someone was walking upstairs, but I was the only one in the house. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs, and then they stopped right outside the room. The doorknob slowly started turning. Click, click, click. I ran past the door and down the stairs as fast as I could. The front door burst open when I pushed it, and I didn't stop running until I reached my house. When I looked back, the upstairs light in that house turned on, and in the window, I saw the shadow again, standing there, watching me. But this time, it slowly lifted its arm. After that day, I promised myself I would never go near that house again. But the problem was my bedroom window faced it directly. So every night, whether I wanted to or not, I could still see it. And every night at 3 a.m., the same thing happened. The upstairs light turned on, and the shadow appeared in the window, standing in the same spot, watching the street, watching my house, watching me. For the next few days, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I remembered those footsteps coming up the stairs, that doorknob turning. Something inside that empty house knew I had been there, and it didn't like it. One night, about a week later, I woke up again around 3 a.m. The room was completely quiet, but something felt wrong, very wrong. I slowly looked toward my window. The light in the house across the street was already on, but this time, the shadow wasn't standing near the window. The room looked empty. At first, I felt relieved. Maybe whatever it was had finally gone. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The front door of that house was open. Slowly, I looked back at my own bedroom door. My heart started beating faster, because I suddenly realized something terrifying. If the shadow wasn't in the window anymore, then where was it? Just then I heard a sound from downstairs. The wooden floor creaked. Step, step, step. Someone was walking inside our house. I froze. My parents were asleep in their room. My little sister Emma was asleep too, but the footsteps continued, slow, heavy, moving through the hallway. Then I heard something else, a quiet knock from my bedroom door. Knock, knock, knock. My whole body went cold. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. Then a voice whispered from the other side of the door, a low, strange voice. You found my house. Tears started forming in my eyes. I didn't say anything. The voice whispered again. So I found yours. The doorknob slowly started turning. Click, click, click. Right before the door opened, all the lights in the house suddenly turned on at the same time. My dad opened his bedroom door in the hallway. Ryan, what's going on? The footsteps outside my door instantly stopped. The doorknob stopped moving. Silence. Dad walked down the hallway. Did you hear something? I slowly opened my door. The hallway was empty. No one there. Nothing. We searched the whole house. Front door locked. Windows closed. No sign anyone had entered. But when I went back to my room, I looked out the window again. The light in the house across the street was off. The window was empty. But something was written on the dusty glass. 3 words, drawn slowly across the window from the inside. See you soon. My dad called the police the next morning. When they searched the abandoned house again, they found something disturbing. Inside that upstairs room, there were dozens of dusty footprints, all leading to the window, and right next to them, there was one fresh footprint, pointing away from the window, leading toward the hallway, like something had finally left the room and walked out of the house, toward the street.